we've got the big old sign up here now, spoilers for Avengers Endgame. So there should be no problem with knowing that that's there if anybody shows up after we've started here. So, middle of the movie, Thor is in Asgard in the past during the events of what most people argue to be one of the worst MCU movies ever made. But it is important to this movie. So, Thor's in the past, and I don't want to discuss all the details about why he's there or what's going on, but they've got what they need, and it's time for him to go back to the present. And he holds out his hand. Mjolnir rushes to his hand, and he's like, I'm still worthy. He laughs at it. He's excited, and then they go back to the present. It's a very short moment. And considering the events that we see after that moment, you pretty much forget about it very fast. It's like, okay, that was great, but there's other things that are going on. Like with Natasha and Clint. There's other things going on like with Nebula. There's other things going on with other characters in that movie that like happen after that point that just kind of, the whole catching Mjolnir part, kind of not that big of a deal. Until later because it is setting up for something else anyway. But that part stuck out to me as probably the most important part, or at least the part that I relate to the most. And that's because while Act 3 has some amazing stuff, the final battle has scenes that are just like beautiful gifts for fans of Marvel Comics. Things that happen during that final battle are incredible. There's some amazing cinematography. There's some amazing lines. There's some amazing events. Things that had me squealing in my movie theater seat. Movie was amazing. Brewdog87, welcome to the chat. And but that moment when Thor catches Mjolnir, because remember, Mjolnir had been destroyed during Thor Ragnarok. He now has a new weapon with Stormbreaker, but holding it doesn't determine whether or not he's worthy. And because of what happened in Infinity War, he's very depressed. He feels so much guilt. He feels like he's straight up not worthy anymore. And that leads to the way he acts after Infinity War. He gets fat. He's eating a lot of food. He's drinking beer. And he's just playing Fortnite. I mean, how pathetic do you have to get? I'm just kidding. That was too easy of a joke. To each their own. But Thor has just given up on life because he made a mistake. It's very easy, I find, for us, you, me, anyone else in the chat, anyone else that you know, it's very easy, especially if you really want to be a worthy person. If what you do matters to you and you're not just somebody who doesn't actually give a crap about other people. If you're a good person, screwing up can really ruin your day. And if you screw up hard, it doesn't even necessarily be as bad as Thor screwed up. Because he knows he could have killed Thanos in Infinity War. He didn't. And as a result of that, trillions were murdered. He bears that guilt. But you and I can screw up in much less ways that will destroy our confidence and our courage and our desire to actually live forever. You don't have to be responsible for deaths to get into the kind of rut that we see Thor in at the beginning of Endgame. It's very easy to give up, and it's very hard to keep going. I absolutely agree with you, Brewdog. If you live a life like that, where your past actions can just destroy you and literally make you worth less in the sense that you are no longer going to be able to produce any good things for anybody. Not that you're worthless as a person, that you have no value. Your friends, your loved ones can still love you, but if you let yourself get down to the dumps so much that you refuse to do anything to make things better, it's very easy to give up. And that's exactly what Thor did. He just straight up gave up. Even when he was told that there was a chance, even when Hulk told him there's a chance that we can make everything right again, bring back everyone who died, Thor is so deep in his own pity hole that he's just like, no. I screwed up that one time, and I don't think that I'm worthy to even go on such an adventure to maybe redeem myself. Redemption. That's another thing that really looks like Thor was thinking there. Redemption, That is not something that I can have. I've given up on the hope that I can ever be redeemed for my past mistakes. It's a thing that I know I thought about for a very long time. So I'm going to open up about something here. When I was 12 years old, my mom, my dad, and my little sister died. I had some survivor's guilt over that. I didn't really know why I was left alive. I, for a little bit, thought, well, maybe there's like a purpose for this. Maybe there's like a reason that I was left alive. Maybe I've got some great grand purpose. That was quickly knocked out of me by an uncle that took me in. A man who, if you read the information below the Twitch chat, below the Twitch video here, he really made sure I understood how worthless he saw me as. Any mistakes I made, he would never let go. He was smart enough to never lay his hands on me, but he still physically abused me by forcing me to do a lot of stuff to my own body, in terms of like labor, stuff that I had no experience with. He threw me in the deep end. It was like, you know what? I'm going to just throw you into like doing like hard manual labor that you've never experienced in the deep end. No instruction. Do this. I wound up bloodied sometimes. I one time passed out in the heat because he wouldn't let me come in for a glass of water. I seriously thought this was my life now. It's like, I survived. Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I don't really know exactly what he was doing, like what was going through my mind at the time. But he made me feel like I was worthless. And I believed him. Now, after a year of that, some other family found out that he had taken me in. They sued. They got custody of me. They got me out of there. I was only there for a year. And, oh, hey, Brewdog, thank you for following. Welcome to the followers group. We're at 60 now. That brings us to 60. That's awesome. Thank you. And you know what? This happened so many years ago that I would like to say, oh, it was so long ago, it doesn't even affect me anymore. But that's the thing. That kind of thing, even though it only happened for a year, my 13th year of life, and by the time I turned 14, I was already out of his house, in a safer house, with family that actually cared about me. Within that year's time, I was already too far gone. I was paranoid. I thought that anyone who did try and show me compassion or care probably just did that because they had some sort of use for me, not because they genuinely liked me or wanted to help me. It was the paranoia and the negative feelings that this one man instilled in me at the most vulnerable time in my life after my family died. So I went years, my 14th year, my 15th year, like all through high school, throughout college, the 2 years I spent at college before dropping out because I figured, well, you know what, I'm pretty useless, I'm pretty dumb, I probably won't be able to make it here anyway, what am I even doing in college? Drop out of college. Luckily found a girl there who I am married to now and is the love of my life, and the mother of my child. But I still felt pathetic and useless, and I ate so much because I thought, well, if I'm useless, then why should I care about my own health? And so that's why I'm this fat. This is why I'm this big and heavy and not doing very well health-wise. But then my daughter was born, and I had this moment of realization of, you know what? I need to stop this. I got to stop acting like this because I've got a daughter who needs me to be a valuable father to her. She doesn't need a father who's going to die because he can't stop eating, fast food and never works out. So I contacted a friend, Steven, and he's been my personal trainer now. And while I still have a lot of weight to lose, my mindset has changed. So back to Avengers Endgame. Thor catches that hammer. He catches Mjolnir, and you just see his face first go to shock. He's just shocked. Wait, why did this come to me? I thought I was just trying it out. I didn't expect anything to actually happen. I mean, first he had a pep talk from his mom. Something that I understand wanting, If I could talk to my dad, I think really would be great. There were plenty of times growing up where I need to talk to my dad because even though I didn't trust anyone else, I kind of felt like my mom or my dad I could have talked to would have probably made things a little bit easier. Thor got that chance, a chance that no one else can get if they lost a parent. But it wasn't quite enough because there's still that thought of, well, you know, maybe they're right. Maybe they're just telling me what I want to hear. None of us have a magic hammer that we know is enchanted, that it can't lie to us about our worth. But Thor catches Mjolnir, and in the span of 2 minutes, with the pep talk from his mom and then suddenly catching the magic hammer, he realizes something. He's still worthy. And he says it. He's like, I'm still worthy. I'm still worthy. This is like the greatest thing that ever happened to him. I'm still worthy. I mean, Rocket doesn't understand what the heck's going on, but still, I'm still worthy. That moment of, I've been acting like a fool just because I failed. And his mom tells him something like this. You're a failure. What does that make you? Like everyone else. Everyone fails at something at one point in their life or another. Sometimes we've got small failures. Sometimes we've got massive failures. But does that lessen the value of you as a person? Not at all. Not at all. You might commit failures that have consequences. Your value of a person is not defined by that, though. It just means, hey, there are consequences now, and you might need to deal with those, clean them up, try and take responsibility for them, but you're not worthless. And if you act like you're worthless, like Thor did for 5 years, well, it's just going to make it harder to get back up on your feet. When I started training last year, I didn't think it was possible for me to lose weight because I had been taught by my uncle that nothing I ever do will ever work, will ever yield good results. I am a failure at everything. I just cannot do it. But at this point, I was like, I've got a daughter and a wife, and I need to try, even if I don't believe it will work. I need to try. So I did try. And sometime last year, back in March of 2018, I was strong enough and had lost a decent amount of weight that I was able to run a Spartan race. It was the small one, the 4-mile one, but I did a mud run. It was disgusting. I honestly don't want to do it again. But I accomplished that, something I couldn't have done before I started training. So that was a big deal to me. And then I gained the weight that I had lost back. And there was this part of me that thought, I'm a failure. But this time, because of the mindset that I had been training with, because Steven had been trying to instill a better mindset in me to be like, look, there are failures, there are successes. You need to just keep moving. Don't give a crap about what others think. Don't worry about, what about the mistakes I've made? Who cares about them? Anyone that wants to hold your mistakes over your head can go, run off a cliff. They don't matter. You just need to keep moving forward. To quote another Marvel movie, or not movie, I guess, the Netflix series, Luke Cage. I love that series. What is it? What was that Pop always said? Always forward, never backwards? How about always forward, never backwards, and never standing still? Keep moving forward. So, how did I maintain focus during working out? Okay, well, for one thing, I had Steven there with me every day I was training. We'd go to the gym for an hour. He told me what things I needed to do. He told me what workouts to do, and because he was there, I did them. And they were hard. There were some times I told him I don't want to do this one, and he would just tell me to do it anyway. There were times I'd be like, I feel a little bit dizzy. He's like, yeah, it's because you're not used to, squatting and then coming back up really fast. Keep at it. You'll get used to it. And eventually I did. Eventually the dizziness went away. Now this isn't like medical advice for anybody. But the fact that I had a trainer there who knew what he was talking about gave me the courage to just do what he said without worrying too much about, what if he's wrong? What do I know? He's the one that trained for this stuff. He's the certified trainer. So having a personal trainer, absolutely invaluable, I would say, to anyone who's just starting working out. And even if you're not just starting working out, I'd say a trainer is absolutely invaluable. The main reason that I didn't keep the weight off was because I've got decades worth of bad eating habits. Because I could go a little while on a diet and trying to keep eating good food, but eventually it was just like, double bacon cheeseburger here, fried chicken over here, and then before you know it, I'm just packing the weight back on, because especially when it comes to weight loss, what you eat affects more of the results than what you do in the gym. Now, the more muscle you build, the easier it is to burn weight. But if you're not eating healthy at all, then that's what screws you up. And because Steven wasn't there for every meal I had, I wasn't focused on doing the right thing. I just fell back into old habits. But whereas before, falling back into old habits would have just made me give up, I haven't given up. Even when I make mistakes now, I know, hey, I know I'm worthy. I know that I've got family that needs me. I know that I can make a difference in this world, not just in my life or my family's life. I can make a difference in this world if I don't think about the mistakes I've made. Learn from the mistakes you've made, yes. I mean, Thor obviously learned from that mistake. You see it in the movie. Well, didn't go for their head the first time. You know what to do now, buddy. Learn from your mistakes, but don't let those mistakes dictate how you live your life. It's just not worth it. Do you find your uncle forcing you to do the hard manual labor stunted your mindset when Steven made you do workouts you didn't want to do? No, I don't think so at all. My uncle was using me. He once said, one time the lawnmower wouldn't start. So he gave me a pair of scissors in the heat of June and told me to go outside and cut all the grass in the backyard with a pair of scissors. That's not healthy. Especially if you don't get to have any water while you do it. That's when I passed out. He told me to build stuff for him, like a chicken coop, a picnic bench, stuff like that. He would do some of that work with me, but he also didn't give me any slack. So like with the chicken coop and stuff like that, it's like, okay, you need to do this. Here's what we're going to do. I'll be doing it with you. You're going to help me with it. But he also didn't take into consideration the fact that I'd never done work like this. There was no easing me into it. There was no training. It was just, I'm going to pretend like you know what you're doing. If you make mistakes, I'm going to yell at you and talk to you like you're worthless trash. And if you make a mistake, I'm going to be really ticked off with you. It's not okay. It's not a good way to raise anybody. And I've learned that this guy who was constantly like, telling me, Duffy, you're not a man. You need to be a man. One day he saw me crying because I had just lost my family. He sees me crying and sent me to my room because he didn't want his daughters to see a man cry because that's not okay. Bull. Excuse me, but that's just ridiculous. And I would love to take him to task one day. Love to just let him know how terrible of a person he is and just tell him, listen, man, the only thing I learned from you that 1 year I spent is how not to be a real man. Just do the opposite of what you did with me, and I'll be a good father. But I'm getting off track here, though, because the thing is, he's in the past. He is a piece of garbage. Thank you, Brewdog. And the thing is, if you let not only your mistakes, but also people from your past that did stuff to you, if you let those people hold you back, you're just letting them win anyway. If Thor continued to just let himself pity himself because he was like, oh, I failed, Thanos would have won easily because without Thor, they would have lost. And Thanos would have won. Even after death, he still would have won. His mission would have been complete and never undone if Thor allowed Thanos to stay in his head like that. So not only is Thor's mistake, but also Thanos. You don't let your past define you exactly, Brewdog87, exactly. Your past has the ability to rein you in and keep you from getting anywhere. I'm going to be 28 this year. Now, assuming I lose all this weight, which I'm going to, and assuming I get stronger, and assuming that I become healthier, and assuming that gives me another 50 to 60 years on this planet, maybe longer. Let's just say through a mixture of medical science and proper training and proper diet, I live to 100. That means I've got 72 years left on this planet. Am I going to let those 72 years produce nothing? What kind of legacy do I want to live? That's a question I've been asking myself a lot lately. What kind of legacy do you want to leave for your family and for the world? When I die, what do I want people to say? Oh yeah, John Duffy, he did nothing? Or, oh yeah, John Duffy, he saved the world. Now I don't know if I'm going to have that kind of opportunity, but if I could be the guy that didn't just you know, make sure that his family didn't starve, which is a good thing. You shouldn't let your family starve. Take care of your family and stuff, but, you'd be a pretty bad person if you did, if you failed at that. But if you let your past keep you from producing a better life for you, your family, your loved ones, if you let your past keep you from doing things that improve the world, like, the old saying, you want to leave the world better than you found it. There's a lot going on in this world right now, guys. Some of it scares me. Some of it absolutely scares me. Some of that panic, which I genuinely have panic sometimes when I read certain headlines. And I'm like, oh gosh, panic, 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 panic. Some of that panic's only there because my uncle made me feel like the whole world was going to one day swallow me up. And my brain's telling me, oh, this is part of what that's going to be. This is going to destroy me. Well, nowadays I'm doing my best to not do that anymore. Nowadays when I see that, I'm like, huh, you know what could stop that? Super me. Which gives me motivation to train hard. So why not take the past and say, you know what, if I was stronger back then, that wouldn't have happened. If I was smarter back then, that wouldn't have happened. What's my takeaway? I need to improve my brain. I need to get smarter and stronger and tougher and faster and more resilient. That way, when the next inevitable thing comes my way, I can stop it. I can tackle it that time. So for Thor, it was like, you know what? That Thanos guy, I failed. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't strong enough. I didn't aim properly. I'm not going to let that happen again. This next time, I'm going to kick his butt. And it's only going to be because I trained. Now, granted, in the movie, Thor was more akin to my body type when he fought Thanos in the end than to, the Thor. I would love, Thor's, stronger body, Go around doing JoJo poses around the house, with the muscular Joe Star man, whatever, you see anime, Marvel movies, whatever. If you let the past define you, then you're done. You may as well just give up. I can't do that anymore. I've got a 3-year-old sleeping in the room next to my office here. My wife's downstairs, and I'm just thinking, I've got people depending on me, and for the first time in my life, I genuinely think I can do something about that. So, all of 2018, for me, was my Thor gets Mjolnir back moment. It was that moment when I realized I am worthy. I mean, granted, I don't look worthy. Neither did Thor in that moment. But when you realize you're worthy, your mind changes. You suddenly realize, hey, I can do this. I gotta do this. And I'm going to. So, I'd encourage you. You don't have to say anything about it in the chat. If you want to, we can talk about it. But I would encourage you to look at what's holding you back in your life. Even if you think, no, I don't really think anything's holding me back. Investigate your past. Write it down if you have to. As far back as you can remember, what happened in this year, what happened in that year, what happened in this year. Is any of these things, these life events that are significant enough that you can remember them, are they somehow preventing you or holding you back? Even if you're still moving forward, could you be going faster? Could you be more efficient? We all have a limited amount of time on this earth, and I've already wasted about, 14 years of my life because I was being held back by that man. 14 years gone. 14 years wasted because of my uncle. Because of 1 year spent with him. Actually, it was less than a year. It was about 9 months. Spent 9 months in that man's house. 9 months made me waste 14 years because I was so pathetic, because I just let him get in my head. Now, I don't know what's going on in your lives. I do hope and wish the best for all of you that are watching, whether it's live or video on demand. Or on YouTube. I might put this on YouTube. But I think the most important thing to do is to let go of the past, learn from it, but let go of it, and then just move forward. Because we can't all have that moment that, that happens. Everything changes in a moment. like when Thor catches Mjolnir, I think that we all need to just go ahead and deal with it anyway. So that was the stuff that I had in my mind. So yeah, thank you for hanging out with me and letting me get that off my chest.